10-4 drivers, welcome to the Channel 19 Experience Trucker Podcast. This is where the real stories roll, straight from the blacktop. From first jobs to last hauls, the laughs that kept us going, and the lessons that left a mark. It's by truckers for truckers. This is the Channel 19 Experience. Let's hit the road.
Paper breaker 19, can I get a radio check? Pretty quiet out here on Channel 19. Well, there's a plain white rapper taking pictures at the state line. Hit the jake brake quick, we ain't paying no fines. The driver swing into the interstate, body shop south at exit 5. Building trucking ain't the same as it was. We're the last of our kind.
Good afternoon, all you gear jammers. I'm your host, Tony, and welcome to the show. It is Sunday, May 4th, and episode number 12. I made it back to the USA from Birmingham, England today, or tomorrow. It all depends on which clock you're looking at, with an 8-hour time difference between the UK and Phoenix. I've got a ton of stuff to process, both mentally, of all the things that I saw and formulated into a plan for discussing on the show, but also a lot of physical artifacts that I gathered from around the truck show and the truck stops and photographs and videos. So I'll be working on that, but it was a great trip. If you've been thinking about doing something like that, heading overseas, you don't have to do a truck stop tour like me. You go to a beach, go see something historical. But if you've been thinking about it, get out there and do it. And if you got kids, you got grandkids, get them out there in the world too. It was really a great trip. The people of Birmingham and the surrounding areas that I visited, it didn't matter where I was, what they were up to. People were wonderful. They made time. They talked to me. They were happy to discuss a variety of things, especially trucking stuff with an American. So that was awesome. We're going to have a little bit shorter show this week, I think, with the change of times and the flights and driver schedules. It didn't really work out to get an interview in. So that's okay. We've got plenty to do. And this week on the podcast, we're going to jump into the pre-trip. We'll catch up a little bit on tariffs. And also, I know it's a bit of a dead horse, but it was a very hot topic over in the UK with people asking about tariffs, thinking about the impact that tariffs are having globally or could have globally. So definitely a little more insight to bring into that, I think, as we progress here. We'll talk a little bit about the basically speak English or get fined, get put out of service discussion that's going on with Trump's order, and also the other states that have put legislation on the table following Arkansas's suit, which may become a moot point here if the feds are going to do something about it. And then, surprise topic, we're going to talk a little football, or soccer as we call it. Got a little story to relate about my football experience while I was in the UK and tie that back into trucking. So we'll give that a shot. In the money line, we're going to dig into the trucking portion of my trip to the UK. Of course, I went there first and foremost to get my medical procedure done, which went great. But mission number 2 was a little bit of exploration into the UK trucking industry. So this episode, we're going to talk about the commercial vehicle show in Birmingham that I was at a few days ago on Thursday. Spent most of the day there, visiting with people, looking at booths, things like that. So we'll talk about that in the money line this week. Like I mentioned, no guests this week. In the meantime, enjoy some of the previous interviews that you may have missed. You can check those out on the interviews page on our website, channel19experience.com. Also on our YouTube channel. If you just throw in the search bar, Channel 19 Experience, you should find us pretty easily. And we've got a separate playlist there with the various interviews that we've done over the last few months. I saw a ton of people check out Mara's interview. That one really had a bunch of clicks, so that was awesome to see. Don't forget to have a listen to the 1099 discussion that we had with Mike Ritzema over at Superior Trucking Payroll Service. We had some great feedback on that one too, but it's something that if you're in that situation or you're under a 1099, you've got people working for you who you're 1099ing, or you're considering that situation, definitely something you want to listen and hear a little bit more about. Make sure you understand how that all works. Don't forget to stick around for the post trip. We'll talk about what's coming next on the podcast now that I'm back into the normal swing of things. And we'll continue our push towards the 1,000 follower mark on Facebook here. Let's take a quick break and do that pre trip inspection. If you're not driving, it's a great time to like, follow, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends. Trans Carolina Permits is based out of North Carolina. They've been in business since 1977, and they've got a team with a ton of experience in all of our favorite part of trucking, which of course is the government. They provide a portfolio of services for the trucking industry, various applications and permits, FMCSA authority, 2290s, IRP tags, DMV tags, trailer plates, along with state filings for your business. Not to mention they have a compliance program. They'll help you with clearinghouse setup and queries, IFTA, and mileage reporting. So your state-by-state mileage, your fuel purchase tracking, and get that wrapped up into a nice little bundle for quarterly filings. They're a one-stop shop for your trucking needs. You can find them on Facebook and LinkedIn, or check out their website, transcarolinapermits.com, or give them a call at 1-800-899-4870. Grab that safety vest and let's jump into the pre-trip. First topic on the pre-trip today, catching up on tariffs. There's been a ton of social media, news, stories going on about the skies falling. We've got pictures, whether they're adulterated, original, AI generated, of basically empty ports all across the west coast of the United States. There's a ton of fear mongering going on, and I don't know if that's really helping anything. I mean, you just see the political slant trying to be thrown at tariffs, and whether you like what the president's up to, you don't like it, you're worried, you're not worried. It's definitely weighing on people's minds. It's sad to see how much air quotes fake news gets pumped into every political topic at this point. And I don't care whether it's the Facebook pages that seem like they're 100% bot driven and don't even have humans behind them, or whether that's in the comments, whether that's people who maybe aren't even associated with trucking, maybe they're not even Americans, bringing in false or, let's say, questionable narratives into the discussion. It's really it's annoying on one level, but it's dangerous on another one. And I don't know where we go with all this, but you can tell people's perspectives get altered by reading headlines, skewed pictures, things like that. But anyway, a lot of fear going on as far as what the impacts are going to be from the tariffs, and with the expectation that at some point we start to see a tangible, it's not just talking about what the impact's going to be. We're going to start seeing it when it hits the docks. I mean, we talked about this on the podcast 7, 8, 9 weeks ago, right? What the likely scenario was, even just with discussing and the threat of tariffs, and also, let's say, a not consistent and not stable approach to tariffs. Flipping around, uncertainty makes people pull their bets off the table, and that's what we're likely to see here. There's going to be a destruction of some demand for goods as a result of these tariffs. That's a given at this point. The question is how much is real as opposed to just made up, and what are people's reaction to that? I think, and that leads into the next topic as well. And so I'll kind of blend the two together here for a moment, which is just the nature of there being tariffs, the possibility that people have pulled orders off waiting to see what the reality of the tariffs are. I know people in business who have stopped ordering things from China and either redirected some of that business over to somewhere else like Vietnam, the Philippines, Taiwan. And, some of those countries have cut deals, reciprocity deals from a tariff standpoint with Trump really quickly to make sure that they didn't get caught out and lose an opportunity here to capture some business, or at least keep status quo on their existing business with the United States. But there's many products that I know people have just stopped ordering for their businesses because they don't have an alternative sourced yet from some other country. So definitely it's going to have an impact. It's going to destroy some demand, at least on a temporary basis, for trucking, because everything that hit those ports gets on a truck and goes somewhere after that. But then kind of on the side here is we have the whole ramp up of enforcement of a long time existing regulation that you need to be able to understand enough English to safely operate your vehicle and communicate with law enforcement officers and be able to read road signs and things of that nature in order to operate a commercial vehicle on our highways and possess a CDL that's valid here in the United States. Now, we all know we've talked about this before that, you know, this isn't a matter of needing more laws on the books. This was a matter of needing the powers that be from an inspection standpoint, from a law enforcement officer standpoint, the DOT, the CVSA, and all the bodies that participate in commercial vehicle inspections, they needed to enforce the rules. We didn't need more rules. We needed a true up to enforcement of the rules that we already had on the books. And so we're starting to see that. Some of it, we're seeing it anecdotally, right? Some pictures of tickets. I know personally, I've talked to some folks who have actual evidence that this is going on. People are being cited, people are being put out of service for not being able to communicate in English at an appropriate level. There are citations being issued, that is real, but the quantity and the impact, don't know yet. I mean, we've seen also anecdotal reports of people who, let's say, they're not certain that them or their drivers would pass an inspection of their English proficiency skills and that they're selling trucks. I haven't seen anything that makes me go, yep, absolutely, that's true, that's happening, but there's a good chance it's likely to be happening. And I think too, I mean, at a certain point here, you're going to see shippers and or brokers start to get real wary of the potential of having a load shut down and put in limbo until it gets resolved because of non-English speaking drivers getting cited and put out of service. So we'll see how the market reacts. Now, that's kind of the flip side of the coin. We've got the tariffs that are looking at destroying trucking demand. What we're starting to feel, at least anecdotally, is that the new ramp up of enforcement of English proficiency skills is going to have the effect of destroying some trucking capacity. And it will have adjacent impacts as well. I mean, the used truck market was already soft, and OEMs were struggling to sell new trucks. If we get a bunch of trucks that get sold off as some of these drivers exit the market here in the United States, it could have a downward pressure on all the truck sales, trailer sales here as the market tries to rebalance itself and find what the new normal is here between the demand destruction and the potential capacity destruction. And rates will have to sort themselves out as well. The good news is our pricing mechanism for rebalancing the market is pretty efficient in transportation. It sorts itself out pretty fast, especially in the spot market. But we'll expect to watch adjustments happen on the fly here as people figure out what's making money, what's not making money, and allocate their resources and efforts and capital towards the areas that are being successful. I mean, we're seeing a little bit of softness in some areas on the freight market. It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out here in the next few weeks as you watch some of those segment spot rates jostle around in reaction to what the reality is. That spot rate really gives you a good indication of what's actually happening in those markets for reefer, van, flatbed, things like that. All right, so last topic in the pre-trip, let's head to the football pitch. Normally, I wouldn't expect to talk much about sports here on a trucker podcast, but this week I'm going to give it a shot and try to tie it back into trucking a little bit. So, yeah, I played baseball and basketball growing up. I picked up golf later in life. And of course, like a lot of Americans, I'm a fan of American football. Go Broncos. I'm a big Broncos fan. The thing, especially as I've gotten older and less of my body parts work to participate in playing any sports other than golf, I find really interesting about sports and the aspects of teamwork, competition, watching various leadership styles. Also, with that is just the incredible individual and team athleticism and skill involved that one can appreciate watching and seeing extraordinary people do extraordinary things. And then the drama that comes with it as you have people trying to achieve championships and win various leagues or seasons or tournaments and watching what they do under pressure, both how it impacts them mentally, but also how that mental strain impacts them physically trying to perform tasks, right? And in trucking, we can see that too, right? There's certain things that get you up more than others when it comes to excitement. There's a difference between driving across I-80 in Nebraska on a 70-degree spring day with no wind and no traffic, and you can be in cruise control as opposed to winter storms or New York City traffic, or pick your challenging situation. We have to rise to those occasions too. So it's interesting to watch these things play out in sporting. I never really had much of an interest growing up in soccer or football, as they call it, but I started to pay attention more once I had an Argentinian girlfriend. And then I moved to Argentina for a while. And of course, that's their passion in South America. Then I ended up moving to Ireland, and my interest in soccer intensified quite a bit while I was there. I went to college and worked for a year over in Cork, Ireland, down on the southern coast. At that time, in the early 2000s, one of the main players for Manchester United, which is kind of the New York Yankees of soccer at that time, was Roy Keane. And Roy Keane was from County Cork. And so every time Manchester United played, the bars were packed. Everybody was cheering for Roy Keane. He was their local boy who made it big and was playing on the biggest stage of it all. And so I've followed soccer ever since, of course, as a fan of Team America. It's not the most satisfying thing to be a fan of, but I never had any sort of personal connection to a team in any of the major leagues in soccer, not like I did growing up with the Minnesota Twins for baseball or the Broncos or the Minnesota Timberwolves. But what I did know was, being going over to spend some time in England for the first time, I wanted to go watch an English Premier League match while I was there. And what I didn't expect was to bond with a team as much as I did. And it was really kind of fun, unexpected as well. So anyway, I went up to the team's called Aston Villa. Aston Villa is a city just on kind of inner ring suburb of Birmingham. And I knew I was going to go see the match on Saturday. I'd planned that out as part of my trip, all things going well, medical procedure wise, which they did. So it was all working out. Wednesday afternoon after surgery, I had the Uber driver basically bring me up to the stadium so I could pick up a little bit of gear, get me a shirt so I could fit in. The Brits have a bit of a reputation for being rowdy fans. So I figured it'd be a good idea to dress the part and look the part. So it's very interesting. In America, if you go to any sort of sporting match, you can basically find jerseys from all over the place. You go to a Arizona Cardinals games, you're going to walk in, you're going to see Raiders jerseys, you're going to see 49ers jerseys. People like to go to the sporting events, even if they're not a fan of one of the two teams. There's plenty of away team visitors. You see that a lot in Arizona because we necessarily don't pack it out with Cardinals fans here, but there's lots of the visiting teams fans, especially like you see places like Seattle, San Francisco. That's not how it works in England. Okay. So they are very clear about the fact that there is one section of the stadium that is for the away teams. It's a very small section of the stadium, and that's where their fans can go and root, and that's where they can sit. And if you buy a ticket in some other part of the stadium and you're wearing the other team's jersey, you likely won't even be allowed in, regardless of whether you bought a ticket or not. They're just going to say, too bad, you're not getting in, not in that section. Or even if you are a little cagey about it and you want to sneak in, even if you're not wearing the other team's jersey and you're sitting in the home team's area of the stadium, which is like 98% of the stadium, if you're cheering for the other team, there's a number you can text and they'll come boot you out, and they're happy to do it. It helps keep the peace, ends a little bit of the rowdiness, but also makes it a different kind of experience because it's really almost entirely home fans at the stadium. When I went up to the stadium, I was going up to the store, the team shops located just adjacent to the stadium there. And I get up there, and up on the side of the wall of the stadium is a slogan, their slogan. And it says, "Where our heroes are villains." And they say that because they're Aston Villa and their mascot, if you will, is a villain. And so there's something about that slogan that just hit me immediately. And and I was like, that's brilliant. And then I had to digest, like, why do I feel that way? Why did I really like that saying? And the thing that it struck a chord within me about was that's us. That's truckers. We're the heroes that are also villains. And the villain role is deeply ingrained in our trucking DNA. Us against the DOT, us against dispatch, us against the four wheelers. You look at our movies and the TV shows about trucking, Smokey and the Bandits, all of them, there's this component of us being simultaneously part hero and part villain. And we bend the rules. Sometimes we outright break them, like Jerry Reed running around and Smokey the Bandit. Like there's some not recommended tactics being employed there. Like they're without a doubt over the line. But he's still able to walk that part of being the hero as well. Like we're rooting for him, cringing maybe in some moments, but that's kind of the weird role that we play, right? Being heroes and also playing the villain. And kind of relates back to, I don't remember what episode it was, maybe episode 2 or 3, where I talked about Batman. And that's kind of Batman's role, right? Being the hero and at times the villain. When they need us, when they need Batman, we're the hero. Or at least when they remember that they need us. They need us all the time, but in the moment when they remember that they need us specifically, we're the hero. But a lot of the rest of the time, we're the villain, right? We're in the way. The news stories about us usually aren't all that glamorizing anymore. There's not really TV shows that glamorize us in the way that happened back in the 70s. So we spend more time as the villain than we do the hero often. And, you know, the one thing it made me think too is like if we ever decided to organize ourselves as a trucking community and do something like go on a strike like we see in other countries or that we've done in the past, once again, there will be part of the country that views us as a hero for doing that, as workers, as blue collar workers, standing up for ourselves and wanting to have rights. But then there will also be the villain part of the people not being able to get their stuff and running out of toilet paper or something else. And they will just wish we would shut up and get back to work. And we'll be the villains once again. I mean, we saw it historically, right, with the Teamsters. There's a part that views them as heroes from an organized labor standpoint and trying to obtain better workers' rights, not just for truck drivers, but for a lot of people. And it started with the Teamsters in a lot of industries, work stoppages, and some of the other stuff that went along with how the Teamsters organized put them in the role of being villains to part of the community. And we still see some of those lingering effects to this day, people's opinions on unions, positive and negative. And so that was, these are a lot of thoughts to go through as I'm thinking about their slogan and just the atmosphere of it all. I bought some gear, went back, or that was on Wednesday. I bought some gear and then I went back to the game on Saturday. So Saturday came, I head back up to the stadium, and now it's an old stadium. This team has been in existence for something like 140, 150 years. So they have multiple generations of families who have all been villains. And the stadium itself is nestled into a very tight neighborhood. The streets around it are single lane, double lane. They've got streets blocked off because there's too many people and you can't have traffic in there. It's really a neighborhood stadium, a giant stadium in the middle of a neighborhood, and which is really cool. Kind of reminds me of places like Wrigley or Fenway Park in Boston, where it's part of the fabric of the community. It's not out in a suburb somewhere on some giant piece of land like the Meadowlands in New York or something like that, where it's just sticking out in the middle and it's just surrounded by giant parking lots. Like it's literally in the community. I get out of my Uber, start walking around the stadium. There's claret and blue everywhere. You don't really see a lot of variety because, like I said, there's no place for you to go. You're not showing up with some London team's jersey on and strolling into the stadium. It's just not going to happen. The team buses are parked right out there in the open. Like literally, you could wait for the players to come off, and they were coming off while I was walking up from the opponents that day. And it felt almost like somewhere between a cross between high school football and big time college football. But this is a professional, the Premier League, essentially the top or one of the top couple of leagues in the world. I go into the stadium. Now here's another interesting thing that's a little bit different there, probably with good reason, but you can buy beer in the concourse, but you can't take beer into the stadium. You can take a soda into the stadium. You can take your meat pie or your sausage roll or your interesting game day foods into the stadium, and you could take soda or water, but you cannot take beer into the stadium. You got to drink it in the concourse. They're not going to let you in there. Help keep a lid on some of the bad behavior, I guess. I get a snack, head in. I go find my seat, and I'm sitting in the second row, and I'll post some Facebook pictures of this stuff. I'm sitting in the second row, essentially on the 40-yard line, basically midfield. Second row. Like literally, I could toss my hat with a flick of the wrist onto the playing surface because the playing surface starts like 2 feet over the wall, and the wall's about 2 feet tall. And I paid 60 pounds, so maybe 80 bucks for the ticket. It blew my mind that when I showed up that my ticket was actually that close, which was an amazing experience. But it's tight in there. I mean, the stadium is literally like right up to the field, and you're sitting right there on the field. And they're stacked all around. It's a really tight atmosphere. And people were chatting me up the whole time. I mean, they can tell that I'm not from there, and just talking with people was really fun. They were excited to have somebody from out of town coming to see their thing. They started with all the typical spectacle, right? Fireworks and flames shooting up out of boxes in the ground and loud music and cheering and stuff like that. It was great. And then I was kind of waiting. I was waiting for the moment when God saved the king or whatever the national anthem is that they play that and everybody'd sing along. And lo and behold, the match just started. That moment never came. They don't do that thing there. So I was a little disappointed. I didn't get to hear. I thought it'd be nice to hear them sing their national anthem, but I guess we're the one group of people who feels the need to play national anthem before every sporting event. So the game got started, and that's when the place really came alive. The chanting, the singing, and it's not orchestrated like in America where you've got a loudspeaker and you've got the announcer who's kind of starting the chants. Their public address announcer doesn't really say much of anything. It's all fan generated, and they've got songs. And like I said, they've been around 150 years. So they've got a whole book of songs. I Googled it, and there was like lists of here's the 267 top Aston Villa songs for the game. And I mean, they go at it all game long. They're chanting and singing and having a grand old time. It was really fun to see people do that on their own. This was their thing. This is their team. And they had a ton of fun. So the villains won, which was great. And honestly, at that point, I was hooked. It was such a fun experience with them, the game day atmosphere, the people, everything. If the villain motto it hadn't sucked me in totally, this had kind of sealed the deal for me. So, and I enjoy going to live sporting events. I mean, I really enjoy going to Broncos games. It's a different feel there in Denver when the Broncos are playing and everybody's running around in orange and blue. But this was something different to me. The match was over. I picked up some gifts for some folks at home at the store. Everybody recommended we'll go to one of the team pubs that are locally in the neighborhood. And basically, at a minimum, you can either go stand at the pub and have a beer and enjoy some music, or you can go stand in line waiting for the train to come. So you might as well just go have a beer anyway, since you're going to have to wait because there's going to be too many people trying to pile onto the trains. So I went to one of the team pubs. And it was an incredible atmosphere there too. They're still singing all the team songs, and they had a live band there. And every time the live band would stop, they'd start back in with the Aston Villa songs until the band was ready to go again. It was just a whole lot of fun, and there was a lot. All ages were in there, 20-year-olds all the way up to 70-year-olds, people from all over the world who are Aston Villa fans, and everybody just having fun together. So my proposal is this, that we adopt their slogan or motto as our own. Our heroes are villains. And so, with that, I nominate the Aston Villa Football Club as the official English Premier League team of the Channel 19 experience. That's all for a pre-trip this week. Get that seat adjusted. Let's push the buttons in and get this rig rolling. We've got work to do. At the Mid-America Truck Show, I had the fortune to meet up with Mike Barber, founder of Truckers Wealth. Mike is a seasoned financial professional. He has over 20 years of dedicated experience serving the trucking industry. Truckers Wealth has created a specialized financial hub where truckers can receive expert advice and tailored solutions to build wealth, minimize taxes, and secure lifetime income for themselves and their families. Truckers Wealth provides personal strategies to help you achieve financial freedom on your terms. Check out his website, truckers-wealth.com, and look forward to seeing him on the program here soon.
It's by truckers for truckers. This is the Channel 19 experience. Let's hit the road.
Welcome back. Let's drop down to line 3 and knock out the money line this week. Our one topic for the money line is the commercial vehicle show there in Birmingham. I went there on Thursday. It's a 3-day show. I had medical procedure and stuff going on, so I ended up going on Thursday instead of earlier in the week like I'd hoped, but it worked out great. They've got a big convention center there on the southeast side of Birmingham, or east side, I guess it is, out by the airport. Really nice complex. They've got a bunch of hotels surrounding it, and they've got some entertainment districts out there. It's a cool area to go to. The show was, I would guess, put along the lines of more of the vendor business to business show, like a Trimble's Insight is a good comp, sort of along the line of the ATA shows or TCA shows or some of the other more business to business related shows. Definitely not like a Matt's as far as audience and target of the vendors who are there. Very good crowd, more active than typical business to business shows that I've been to. And people were really outgoing, not just to hang out in their booth, hope somebody comes and finds them and kill time until you get to go home kind of show. Like, people were very approachable. They were out in the aisles approaching you, not in a hard sell, not trying to run it like carnival barkers, but really just engaging with folks, wanting to just talk and say, what do you do? Why are you here? What are you looking for? Not even selling, but just more just conversing with people and bonding over just being a part of the transportation industry together. Lots of similar products from a lot of the booths that what you would see here. You've got your slew of their equivalent of, let's say, ELD providers or dash cams or various software, lights, safety equipment, straps. You had some truck manufacturers there, you had some trailer manufacturers there. So a lot of similar type stuff. One thing that I noticed was a really big difference was there was food everywhere. Tons of food stands, tons of food trucks. I would say probably half to 3/4 of the booths themselves had food in there, whether it was pastries, all kinds of different stuff. Everybody was using food as the lure, which was great, especially because the whole thing was free to get into. So basically, you could have a couple, 3 meals taken care of just wandering the floor. You kind of don't see that at the US shows. Even Matt's, there's places to go buy food, but you don't really see it as incorporated in the booths. Now, the other thing you didn't see was typically at the US shows, you see a lot of marketing schemes like come spin the wheel and get a free drawing or for something, or come try and get a hole in one on our little putting mat and we'll give you a free t-shirt, or lots of things to kind of capture your information and get you to engage that way. I don't think I saw one thing like that, like our type of marketing. which was kind of nice. They wanted you to come up and talk to them because you wanted to come up and talk to them, not because you wanted to sign up to spin the wheel and try to win a free pair of gloves or whatever. There was a couple American companies there, or at least companies that exist in America or have a presence in America, but very few Americans there at all. I think I ran into one other American, and she happened to work at one of the companies that was founded in America, but had extended their business over into the UK from a safety monitoring standpoint. And like I mentioned earlier, people were surprised to see an American there at their show, not something that was typical. And almost universally, once we broke the ice and they found out I was an American, within the first three questions was going to be, what do you think about Trump? And then the follow on behind that was, where do you think this is all going with tariffs? Lots of concern about the tariffs and how it's going to impact the whole world and change up some of the dynamics of transportation and logistics, whether that's demand, whether that's certain items being sourced from different countries, changing up who may lose out. And because their angle of participating in logistics dries up, or them being at the receiving end of a tailwind because all of a sudden their avenue of sourcing products now becomes very popular because some tariff is a blocker for the way that those goods normally flow into the country. And also the fear that, yeah, it may be good for a moment, but what am I supposed to do if Trump changes his mind 2 months from now and pulls back some of these tariffs and things get scrambled up again? People not trying to overreact positively or negatively, not thinking that just because something good happened in the short run because of some tariff, it doesn't guarantee that that business is going to stick around for 6 months or a year. It may go right back to normal as soon as somebody cuts a deal or Trump cuts a deal with China on tariffs, and then it goes back to the way things were. And how do you respond to that? So, really, a ton of concern and a bunch of uncertainty. I hadn't thought of it as an impact to them. Of course, it's forefront of our minds here to wonder what's going to happen and how it's going to impact each of us, and not just logistically, but in our wallets on a personal level with the things that we need to buy or choose to buy, but really on weighing heavy on all of their minds. It was pretty much every booth that I stopped and conversed with people, that topic came up really fast. And even when I wasn't at the truck show, a lot of people are interested in what it is that we do and how this tariff stuff impacts them all over the world. Now, I was able to have a lot of great conversations with people, different vendors, also different trucking organizations. They had some unique organizations that I thought were really interesting. One was around an association for the training and further education of fleet managers, dispatchers, people like that. We have some things in America that deal with that, like the National Private Truck Council has some very good programming, but largely their organization is geared towards private fleets. This one was geared more towards anybody who has for hire dispatchers, planners, customer service, operational people. How do you upskill them? It's a big challenge over there as well. I mean, we all know personally in the United States what it's like to have dispatchers who don't really understand what's going on out there, or even dealing with brokers or intermediaries or anyone who doesn't understand the realities of actually doing the job, and but being put in a position to manage the people who do the job. Some of it's funny, some of it's not very funny, some of it's downright irritating, but they have an organization there that helps try to upskill people. And I experienced too, I had fleet managers and customer service reps and planners who worked for me at various times. And even when you're looking for hiring people for those jobs here, like there are plenty of people signed up and going through logistics and supply chain curriculums at universities. That does not mean they're learning what it really takes to be a fleet manager or what it's really like in the trucking industry. Like there might be a chapter with some pictures and some explanations. That is not the same thing, as all of us know, as understanding what really goes on to move stuff from point A to B and what you need to know to be an effective fleet manager. And also, we talked a lot about, yes, there's the understanding logistics, but a lot of it too is around learning how to deal with people. And by deal with them, I don't mean like just the bad things, but just being able to communicate well and to be humble enough to recognize the things that you don't know and lean on the person on the other end of that phone, the truck driver, the owner operator who does have experience and is looking at the problem with their own eyes and not have any internal biases towards truck drivers that tend to exist in our society. So, in learning how to communicate well with people, learning how to deal with people when they're in a moment that's very frustrating. So there's a bunch of the curriculum that revolves around that. I found that group very interesting. We had a really great conversation, and that conversation will continue beyond just the show. But there was a lot of great conversations with the various vendors there. And there was a lot of similar concerns to the things that we see and have concerns about here in America. A big pain point they feel is government overreach, pointless regulations, over-regulating things. It's really expensive to get a commercial license over there as well, and they have to take basically continuing education classes every year to keep their license. And I haven't gotten to the bottom of it yet because it made my head spin when I was talking to the various drivers and some of the vendors for their basically their ELDs. They call them tackies or digital tachographs, but they have some really interesting regulations there that are really different than ours. And I'm going to do a little research so we can talk about it and maybe even get a couple of those folks who actually know what they're talking about to talk about it with us because it's really interesting and it's really different. And they have concerns about that, especially how it impacts the wages. Most of the wages are paid either kind of on a salary basis or an per hour basis. And there's challenges there as well with making sure that they're livable wages. And especially when you're strictly regulated, like there's no exemptions to get around using their tachographs to monitor your hours and obey the hours of service regulations. And their fines are very steep and they're very, let's say, diligent with inspecting. The number of inspection stations is growing all the time. They do pop-ups and portables inspections stations just like we do here. So that was something that came up a lot too as a frustrating point for the drivers. Like every time they turn around, there's even more government workers waiting to do inspections and looking for reasons to write tickets. Like I mentioned, driver pay is really front of the mind topic for them. Also, immigrant drivers, people coming over from other areas. That's changed a little bit with Brexit, but there's still drivers come over from other countries. Like when I was talking to one of the gals at the truck stop, she's like, yeah, it's nothing to have one driver be from Italy and the next driver from Romania and the next driver from France and the next driver a British driver. Like you get drivers from all over the place coming in. And imagine we think we have some challenges with basically a couple languages that we're dealing with in any sort of volume, but they have a whole different scale of multilingual challenges, whether that's software, whether that's dealing with customers, whether that's dealing with dispatcher. You know, you might have a German speaking driver talking to a French speaking mechanic at a shop who's trying to talk to an Italian person back at the trucking company trying to explain what's wrong. Imagine navigating that three-way conversation. So you see that these language challenges are really something that the vendors are working on and figuring out how do we solve this and help make it easier for people to communicate with one another when there is no common language like in the airline industry where everybody agreed to, hey, we're all going to speak English when it comes to pilots and control towers and all those things. One of the cool things there is they really love our trucks. They love our trucking culture. They're fascinated, of course, with the size of America and just thinking about like what it would be like to have that much space to actually go do some trucking. A lot of these drivers run locally. A lot of drivers only spend a night or two out a week. So that's a bit of a different culture than over the road. And especially with Brexit, folks I talked to had done more over the road, air quotes, over the road type stuff before Brexit, where they were a seamless part of the EU and you could drive from London or Liverpool and go deliver freight in various parts of Europe. And a lot of the companies, ever since the hassle became really large with Brexit and basically going from outside the EU into the EU, when once you go under the English Channel over to the mainland, a lot of that sounds like it behaves more like the US Mexican border, where we don't really go into Mexico with American drivers that much, but a lot of the drivers come up into England like we see with Mexican drivers coming into the United States to deliver some of that freight. So it definitely an interesting dynamic there that resembles our challenge with cross-border traffic and even the cabotage situations where trying to monitor what exactly are you doing while you're in our country? Are you actually trying to get out with some freight, or are you bouncing around undercutting the UK drivers while you're in the UK? But overall, really great experience with all the groups that I talked to. I did a lot of networking while I was there, and even at the show, like it's a big show. And after talking to certain people on one side of the show, and I would recognize that, hey, you guys should probably talk to these other people. Did you know there was a booth over on the other side that they're looking for partners that sound like exactly what you do? And I'm like, no, we didn't even know they were there. We didn't know they were exist. So I spent a bunch of time kind of crisscrossing the show floor and connecting people while I was there, which was a lot of fun. And that's kind of my approach wherever I go, which is do something positive for people and for their benefit first. And if you care about other people in this business, then a lot of times it gets paid back two, three, four, tenfold because they know you're the type of person to care. I got to see some really cool, innovative ideas, stuff I hadn't ever seen at US truck shows. They're really doing a lot of cool stuff, experimenting with alternative fuels or alternative fuel enhancers. Made some connections with those people. There's definitely some products that I'm interested in trying to help them bring to the US and give it a try. And also some of the products that they use working with the various conditions that they have. And so interesting products to see how well they would perform in the United States. Of course, I got to climb on some trucks. I get to go check out some of those cab overs. I found out how much some of those cab overs cost. I was surprised. I was expecting to be cheaper than it was. Those cab overs, the short ones, not the super duper ones, the super brigs like you see more in mainland Europe, but even the smaller ones that you see in the UK with the short sleepers, they cost as much as decked out Pete's and W900s. That was kind of surprising, but they were cool in the inside. I didn't get to drive one, of course, because we were inside a show and the steering wheel's on the wrong side and the shifter's on the wrong side. But just lots of interesting nuances and the difference. I took a bunch of pictures. I'll share those on Facebook. Even like the trailer hookups are different. They don't have glad hands. There's none of that, right? It's all quick couplers, which is cool. It made me ask, like, why the hell do we have glad hands? Why don't we have quick couplers? Seems like we created a part that we probably already had a part for. I don't know. Maybe somebody out there knows a little bit more about the history of glad hands and why we use glad hands and other people don't. But overall, it was a fantastic show. I look forward to going to some more. I found out about a couple other big ones over mainland Europe, which I'm sure have even more diversity of products. I mean, that was the other thing too. Like the vendors were from all over, like not just the UK. There were vendors from as far as Saudi Arabia, UAE, Moldova. And so that was really cool to see the different vendors and the different things that they encounter. Like I was looking at some of the dispatch systems. This guy, they do business out of the United Arab Emirates. And anyway, we were just talking about different things and he's showing me different. Of course, I had a million questions about, well, what's inside that drop down and what does that mean? Just fun to see the diversity of logistics and how some of this stuff plays out differently. There's a certain amount of you think that the way that we do it is the only way to do it. And there's lots of ways to skin these cats, which is fun to go explore and see. And of course, one of the great things about human history is you steal the good ideas when you see somebody come up with something better and bring it back home and make things better where you are. So we'll see how all that stuff plays out. After the show, I grabbed an Uber driver and we went scouring the countryside for truck stops and truck drivers. I don't know what he thought his day was going to be like, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't expecting that. He was an Italian guy who had been living in the UK for about 20 years. He didn't have a clue about trucks or trucking or any of this stuff. And we went out and learned and explored together. He had a good time with it. We had a really nice time together. He was out there with me, exploring the truck stops, listening to the conversations. He was asking me questions. I was asking him questions just about life and things like that. So that's one of the fun things that I always like to take the opportunity to do is to spread a little bit about trucking to whoever, especially the people who don't know anything about it, because it is a mystery to most people. Most people have no idea what it's like. They don't even think about any of the things and what it might be like to participate in that industry. So when you get an opportunity to be a good ambassador for our industry, it means a lot to me to be able to do that. So we're going to talk about that over the next couple episodes, those adventures. That's all for the money line this week. Let's drop it down to line 4 and wrap up this episode with the post trip. True TMS is a cloud-based transportation management system. Being in the cloud makes integrations faster and you're able to access the platform from anywhere. It has intuitive planning, on-demand reporting, and easy order creation, rating, and invoices, which turns tedious admin work into streamlined automated workflows. And True TMS ensures your team feels supported throughout the entire process. The folks at True TMS have decades of trucking and liquid experience, and they care about this industry. They don't just sell you a product, they're invested in your success. Visit their website, truetms.com, and of course, tell them Channel 19 sent you.
We're talking trucking life, uncut. The wild stuff, the weird stuff, the mistakes, the memories, and the miles in between. From first jobs to last hauls, the laughs that kept us going, and the lessons that left a mark.
Welcome back for the post trip. Be sure to check out our social media pages, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Also, come join our Facebook group where you can post your own thoughts, memes, snarky comments, funny videos. And thanks to the folks who've been posting up there. I saw Mara added a bunch of information about some upcoming shows and trucking events, so that's great. Thank you so much, Mara, and everybody else. Check those out. A couple of events that I've been talking about that are coming up here in the trucking world. Of course, we've got the Tulsa Truck Show coming up 2 weeks away. They've got the diesel drags and camping available. Looks like a heck of a lot of fun. If I incidentally find myself in Oklahoma, I might have to sneak up there for a day and check that out. Large Cars and Guitars is coming up in 3 weeks down in Bristol, Tennessee. That's Tony Justice's show. And of course, it's the summertime. So we're going to see tons of shows all over the place. The American Trucking Historical Society's got shows. We've got the Walcott Jamboree coming up. So keep your eyes out. There's plenty of social media posts sharing those items, but get out there, enjoy, have some fun, be proud of this industry of ours. Go admire some of the amazing work some of these folks have done with their rigs. They just had the Trucking for Kids show out in Bakersfield this past weekend. That one's brought to us by 10-4 magazine. They run that show and they raise a bunch of money for Shriners. I'm just getting started catching up on all the social media now that I'm back in the US. And so I'll be looking for posts and photos and videos from that. They had some cool events going on over there, so look forward to checking those out. Quick reminder to pay a visit to our friends on the show here. We've had a ton of interviews over the last few months, so check those folks' pages out. Mara Elliott's page. We've got the Superior Trucking Payroll Service. That's truckingpayroll.com. That's Mike Rietzema if you've got payroll questions. The Feathersons, I-95 Truckers. I saw Al was out and about at some races over the last week, so cool photos there from the racetrack. Big Cal's Trucking Kitchen, MJ Love Johnson, Cindy in Iraq, Chris Barber. Pay them a visit. I see a bunch of you out there supporting each other, people who have invested time in joining our show. We've got great people doing amazing stuff with their journey, and it's great to see people supporting one another. Be sure to reach out if you'd like to be on the program. Message us on social media. Email us at inbox@channel19experience.com. There's a contact form on our website as well. Coming up on the next episode, we're going to continue to unwrap my trucking adventures in the UK. I went on my West Midlands truck stop adventure, and I got to observe and interact with UK truckers in their natural environment, much to their surprise. Some goofball from America is out wandering truck stops, asking them questions about what it's like to be a truck driver. I even accidentally asked some people who weren't truck drivers, and they had to kindly tell me, I have no idea what you're talking about, bud. I'm not a truck driver. I'm just here enjoying the food at the truck stop. So it was really great conversations. I met some really cool people, and they were great about it. So I'm going to share some of those stories with you as well. Also, we've got to do a little bit of a catch up. I promised to talk to little brother Trucker about his mechanical adventures and his brief stint in the plastic truck mafia. Also, Danger Dave's going to chime in. Hopefully, we'll try and do a three-way call here. First time on the program for that. And expand on the conversation a little bit about 1099s. And final reminder, like, follow, subscribe, heart, share with your friends. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. Thanks for listening this week. We'll see y'all next week. We've got work to do.
This has been the Channel 19 Experience. If it's about trucking, we're talking about it. All uncut. The wild stuff, the weird stuff, the mistakes, the memories. But we talk about the world of trucking today, too. Everything from legislation to lane changes in the industry. We got it covered. Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back at the ranch soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on social media at Channel 19 Experience and the website at www.channel19experience.com. That's channel and the numbers 19. See you down the road.